Hello, welcome back. It's Christopher Taylor with Sovereign Harmony Astrology here to do the astrology for the month of August 2026, believe it or not. Anyway, we are in the midst of eclipse season. So we're just coming off and we're still in the energy of this full moon in Aquarius, very powerful full moon joining Pluto and asking us to make room, essentially, release ideas of the future that no longer fit us, people in our lives that no longer are going to take us where we're going, things of that nature. So pretty intense. We're in it. That opens up the eclipse season because the next two lunations will be the total solar eclipse on August 12th and then the partial lunar eclipse on August 27th. Then when we have the new moon in Virgo, September 10th, that will close out this eclipse season. But we're in it now. And so we're just going to go over what's happening this month with obviously those eclipses being major themes of this month for sure. And start with just a few movements of some planetary bodies. So, for example, Chiron on August 3rd turns retrograde at 1 degree Taurus. So it just entered Taurus very recently. It only has several weeks left in Taurus. In September, it'll drop back into Aries, where it's going to be until I think April. So still a lot of work to do with Chiron and Aries. We just had a little preview here with Chiron and Taurus, and so this short period of time with Chiron and Taurus has shifted our focus in terms of our wounds from self-actualization to self-worth. Okay. And so we get a taste of the self-worth. We'll get back to it next spring, 2027. And then we'll have a good, 7 years of that till 2034 with Chiron and Taurus. So that's happening really in August. Also have some planetary movements. August 6th, Venus will enter Libra. That's a place that Venus loves to be. Venus is one of the rulers of Libra. And so, or I should say, Libra is one of the signs that Venus rules, the more accurate way to say it. So Venus, Libra, it's at home. So things will be a little bit lighter in the relationship realm, as far as that goes, and aesthetically speaking, things soften up a little bit. Mercury will enter Leo, which means it's exiting Cancer. So remember, Mercury entered Cancer in mid-June, and it retrograded into Cancer. So it spent 2 months in Cancer because of that. Okay, and when it entered Cancer, Jupiter was still in Cancer. Jupiter entered Cancer early summer 2025. So it's been a while since we haven't had any planets in Cancer. Okay. And so Jupiter was all about the past year, emotional growth, expansion of our emotional world, essentially. Mercury retrograde in Cancer recently was all about reevaluating that. What did we learn? How are our feelings now in regards to how they integrate into our lives? Do we have a new relationship with our feelings, etc.? Okay, so with Mercury exiting Cancer, it says, I'm done. But guess what? 2 days after, actually about 36 hours after Mercury enters Leo, where it's going to be, a time for communication is going to be a little more confident. Where Mercury in Cancer was a little bit more pulled back, intuitive, a little more self-integration, that kind of thing. Mercury in Leo, it's just kind of let it out. So if we wanted to say some things, we couldn't say them the last couple of months, all of a sudden things just really come out clearly and loudly with Mercury and Leo, and confidently, of course. And then, like I said, 36 hours after that happens, Mars will enter Cancer. So we get 36 hours off. So what that means is our, in terms of action, and Mars is going to be in Cancer until the end of September 27th. So it's about 7 weeks, Mars in Cancer. And this is acting according to that emotional growth. So Mercury was reevaluating that emotional growth that we went through over the last year with Jupiter in Cancer. Mars in Cancer is going to be acting in accordance to that emotional growth. So what have we learned about our feelings? Well, it's time to take action in ways that reflect it. Okay. So that's really what that theme is going to be, really, for most of August and then through most of September as well. So acting again on what we've learned, how we've grown, how we've evolved. So now we'll talk about the solar eclipse at 20 degrees Leo, and this is a south node solar eclipse. It's a total solar eclipse, but we'll see here on the chart. There it is, right there. Sun, Moon, Leo, nodes, right there. So this is what makes it an eclipse. When the sun, when you have a lunation riding along the nodal axis, that's when you're going to have eclipses. That's so every 6 months or so we get them. So this one in Leo, south node is about release. Okay, when it's a north node situation, it's about things coming in. This is a release, and so what we're releasing is the ego. Okay, the negative side of Leo is the ego, right? So this is like an ego death. in a way associated with this lunation. In general, because we have the movement of the nodes into South Node in Leo, North Node in Aquarius, this is the general direction that we're headed the next year and a half, is this sense of releasing the ego, releasing the performance, and embracing our authentic contribution to the whole, right? So that is the theme. This is kind of like one leg of that journey, a sense of our ego having to get out of the way so that the real self can show itself, right? And Saturn over here, forming a trine to that, it really reminds us of that. Saturn in Aries, this is about responsibility for the self. So responsibility for the authentic self as well. So this is really holding us in check. And it's basically saying this is like a cross point here on August 12th, this total solar eclipse. And again, it ripples out a few months, but it begins here in August. And it's this process of, again, releasing the ego, allowing the ego to die to make room for the authentic self. That's the main theme of this eclipse, if we had to sum it up really simply. Okay, on to the next. So then we'll have Sun enters Virgo August 22nd. That happens every year around that time, but Mercury is not always on its tail. So we just had Mercury enter Leo on August 9th. It's only there for a couple of weeks, and then it's on to Virgo because now Mercury's very fast moving. We're beyond that Mercury retrograde in Cancer. So things are picking up. And so Sun and Mercury, they'll both be in Virgo. And then on the 27th, we see here on the same day as that partial lunar eclipse in Pisces, we have the Sun-Mercury conjunction at 4 degrees Virgo. Okay, exactly opposite where where the moon is going to be, of course, because the moon is opposite the sun. And that is what's called the superior conjunction of Sun and Mercury. So we have the inferior conjunction, which is like the halfway point of a Mercury retrograde. So we had the inferior conjunction when Mercury was in Cancer, retrograded back to the sun in Cancer. And that's almost serves as like a new moon, like an initiation energy. And then the superior conjunction serves as a culmination energy, similar to the way that a full moon is a culmination energy. And with this full moon, or being a lunar eclipse, okay, and it's on the North Node, so this is really about things coming in. This like culminations that can even be shocking, as we'll see in the chart here, right? So in that chart, there's the Mercury Sun superior conjunction. There's the eclipsed moon next to the node. Okay. So when it comes to just this part of it, that Sun Mercury. So again, that is the culmination of that emotional reevaluation that we did with the Mercury retrograde in Cancer. So now we're ready for some agreements. Okay. Virgo energy here. It's practical agreements that we make with ourselves and others that reflect everything we've learned on the emotional level over the last year, and especially what we've had to integrate and reevaluate with Mercury retrograde in Cancer. So we're coming to some conclusions, some agreements based on that. In addition, with the lunar eclipse itself, notice what it's doing. So we just came out of this Barbo basket in July, and that was between Pluto in Aquarius, Neptune in Aries, Uranus in Gemini, and then Jupiter was what really formed the basket. So Jupiter opposing Pluto was the kind of rim of the basket, and then they had the equidistant points there. Okay, but Jupiter is pulling away now. So that Barbo basket is done. The triangle between Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus continues, but the Barbo basket aspect of that is complete with Jupiter. Okay, pulling off. But notice what this lunar eclipse does is it forms its own Barbo basket, and it's loose. It's not super tight, but it's it's part of a lunar eclipse, so I'll allow it. All right. So that is now the rim of the basket. The bottom of the basket is this square to Uranus in Gemini, which we'll talk about in a second. But the other threads of that basket are this Mars in Cancer and Chiron in Taurus. In the same way that Neptune and Uranus were the threads of this, the rim of the basket with Pluto and Jupiter. So they're kind of pulling it together. And then we have this in the bottom of this basket, Uranus and Gemini, squaring obviously the sun and the moon and Mercury. This is some possibly shocking culminations. Okay, so it's culminations, it's agreements, but something about this is like out of nowhere. Okay, so the information that comes in can be shocking and kind of shake the ground a bit. All right. And this lunar eclipse is in Pisces, so it's a water sign. It's emotions, it's all that emotional growth that we've gone through. Mars in Cancer is attached to this lunation as well. So this is about that movement of the emotions. But again, it's got a practical undertone to it. Okay. So it can be surprising, emotional, but yet a practical solution for how to go forward with it from there. Okay. So it's not all bad. We can think of shocking as always like a negative with a negative tone, but it doesn't have to be. Okay. And in this case, it feels very positive. It feels like the culmination of growth. And then what that leads to. Okay. That's the next step, essentially, right? The next chapter. I mean, there's a reason why Pisces is the final sign of the zodiac too. It's that it's the highest point of evolution in a way, right? And so this is like a culmination of all of our evolution, what we've come to, and what we're ready for next, right? And Pisces is water. Water is strong. It's you can't hold back. The water ends up being the strongest of the elements at the end of the day. It's what carves the Grand Canyon. It'll bust through any dam that's set up against it eventually, unless you're maintaining it. That water is meant to move things, even if it's gradual and over time. Patience is a huge part of Pisces energy. Okay. But this is like, again, it's almost culmination. It's almost like a graduation that says, hey, we're done with this chapter. Next chapter is on board, and we're on the board of the next chapter because of everything we've done. And so it's a practical move, essentially, based on a really deep growth that has gone on. So potent lunar eclipse here on, again, that's August 27th, and that'll also linger several months in the future. Last thing on the docket here is at the very end of the month, and in terms of the 1 degree orb, it'll be August 27th to September 4th. Jupiter in Leo will trine Saturn retrograde in Aries. Okay, and they're going to be in and out. They're going to come back into a trine in April of 2027, and then they'll have their final trine in July of 2027. But I like to look at it as one giant piece of time. Whenever planets are going to be forming an ongoing aspect. So for me, it starts here in late August, goes almost a year, about 11 months into the middle of summer next year. And this is just kind of reflects back to the total solar eclipse energy, okay, where we talked about how it's the ego death, and it's making sure we align with our authenticity. That's that Saturn holding, that solar eclipse in check, essentially. And it's kind of the same kind of energy here. It's like now Jupiter in Leo, right where this eclipse was. It's like it's more about the growth of our authentic self as our contribution to the whole, and Saturn making sure that we remain responsible for the authenticity and don't let a performance or a mask kind of lead the way. So this is a general period of almost a year of coming more into our true selves, our true nature, what we really intend to do here. So we're not distracted by a persona that we think we're supposed to be. Okay. It's about really coming into our authentic selves, which is going to be, super important, which means knowing how to express our authentic self, not just our persona self. Right. And again, the big part of this journey in the emotional realm, we're still going to have Mars in Cancer again, like I said, till September. All this Cancer energy is we've had to learn how to meet our emotions. That's part of our authentic selves. And with the partial lunar eclipse in Pisces, like I said, it's like that analogy of how water is the strength of water over time. And so the emotions, if we don't know how to process and contain them properly and channel them properly, really, then they can destroy everything in their path. Like that's what water does. And so a part of this eclipse shocking culminations can be maybe finally some feelings coming out, but in a way, again, that can now be practically utilized and channeled. Okay. So that's the end of the month there. So just to review, Chiron turns retrograde early in the month. Venus is going to enter its home in Libra. Mercury enters Leo briefly, giving us about a 36-hour window of nothing in Cancer, but then Mars will come in there, and it's going to be there till the end of September. And then we have the total solar eclipse in Leo, all about, again, committing to our authentic selves, releasing the ego. Sun and Mercury enter Virgo, come together right with this lunar eclipse in Pisces. Very potent, very, again, shocking culminations that can come from this, but in a very positive way that we can use practically. But just be ready for some surprises at the end of the month for sure. And then immediately after that, it's stabilized. This Jupiter trine Saturn is it's a pretty stable growth kind of energy. And it comes right after this lunar eclipse. So it's like whatever is revealed, whatever comes out, whatever culminates finally, it's like we can really utilize it and move it forward. So just to sum it up, we got ego death this month, practical agreements, and shocking culminations. If you have any questions, please let me know. If you want to comment, please comment below. If you're looking for a personal reading, I do those as well. We can look at where all this fits in your chart in the month of August here. Other than that, find me up on the hill weekly for my updates. Also, you can follow me on Facebook for more written updates throughout the week. That's going to be Sovereign Harmony Astrology. Pretty easy to find. Other than that, take care, and we'll see you next month.